ComC is your home for buying, selling, and flipping all the hottest trading cards. Their consignment marketplace is home to over 27 million cards across all sports, genres, and eras. With a ComC account, you can purchase cards from different sellers over time and ship them home together later, or immediately reprice them for sale on the ComC marketplace. To stay updated with ComC, please follow them on social media at CheckOutMyCards, one word, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn about offers, promotions, and more at ComC, please visit blog.comc.com. You're listening to the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute, a podcast where we discuss both the hobby and business sides of collecting. I'm your host, Mike Sommer, and I want to help you buy, sell, and trade your way into a collection you'll love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute. I'm recording this on the morning of Super Bowl Sunday, and I've been asked several times this week who I want to win. And the reality is, I'm a Bears fan. I really don't care who wins, but I'd kind of like to see Matthew Stafford get a Super Bowl victory after suffering for years and years in Detroit, getting a chance to play on a different team this year, going to the Super Bowl in his first season with them. I'd love to see him get a chance to win one. I think Joe Burrow's going to have a lot of chances, in the upcoming years, but Matthew Stafford is kind of on the latter half of his career, so I'd like to see him get a Super Bowl victory. So by the time that you hear this, we'll know if that came true or not, but that's kind of one of the things that's on my mind today. I'm also been thinking about this week that we're finally starting to see some supplies come back into reasonable ranges. Instead of the days of $80, $90, $100, $140 cases of penny sleeves, you can get those down in the $50 or $60 range. And the same thing with top loaders. You can get bulk top loaders now in the $60 a case range, or even if you're just buying one case, you can get them around $80 a case. And that caught my eye because I saw listings on eBay of used top loaders selling for more than that. And so used top loaders are great. I use them all the time. They have a place, but don't pay more for used top loaders than it costs for new top loaders. Make sure you're paying the right price. So that's my little public service announcement that I've also been thinking about today. Neither of those two things are our main topic today. I have on another guest, somebody who is a fellow content creator that I had a chance to meet at the Industry Summit in Las Vegas when we connected for an interview for his podcast, that 70s Card Show. John Keating is who we're going to be talking with today, and we're going to talk about his origin story and the origin of his show, that 70s Card Show. And so I hope you enjoy that conversation that we're going to have after I tell you about Underdog Collectibles, the online shop run by collectors for collectors that breaks new product every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday night. You can check them out at udogcollect.com to see what they're going to be breaking this week. And you can also visit them at their brick and mortar shop in Knoxville, Tennessee, where they've got a full selection of wax, singles, and you can even watch some of their breaks live there in the shop. Check them out at udogcollect.com and tell them WaxPackHero sent you. Well, I am joined today by John Keating, the host of that 70s Card Show. John and I first connected in Las Vegas when I was at the Industry Summit. He was there on work, and we wrangled ourselves a banquet room, I guess it was, at 6 a.m. and sat down for a conversation that we did for his show. I wanted to have him on here today to talk a little bit about his background and his show, and so we'll go ahead and get started. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. And more importantly, thanks for meeting me in a ballroom at 6 a.m. in Las Vegas when you had no idea what you were getting yourself into.
It seemed like I was already in Las Vegas for the week. Might as well have another adventure. I'm an early riser, and, being in the central time zone from Illinois, I was waking up at like 3:30 or 4 a.m. every day there in Vegas. So when you said like 6 a.m., does that work? And I'm like, you bet it works, because I'll have already been up for a couple hours anyway. So that was a lot of fun. This recording that we are doing now is via Zoom. We are not in person this time. And while you are traveling, I am in my basement at WaxPackHero HQ. So
very good.
Let's get started by just hearing a little bit about your collecting background?
Okay, so I covered it a little bit in some of the earlier shows that I did. One of my brothers got busted for buying a whole bunch of wacky packages uh, that my mom gave him some extra money for. I took liberties with that, spent a lot of money. That was my first recollection that there were cards. My first physical remembrance of seeing cards were after we moved out of the city. I was probably 5 years old or 6 years old at the time. I remember seeing a box on the front porch. In my mind, it's a refrigerator box, but it's probably just a normal size box. And I remember seeing a 73 William A's, and that box was on the porch because it was going to the trash. So I never saw that box again. Through Little League, through my family, everybody in my family were big Phillies fans in particular. Watched a lot of baseball. Just started buying cards constantly and was bribed with cards to not bite my nails, do homework, not argue with my brother, stuff like that. So I've been collecting hardcore since the mid 70s. I remember 75, 76 in particular. And from there on, mostly baseball from there on out. So that's me, a sad kid from the 70s.
Now, did you take a break? Have you collected constantly through that period of time? Did you come and go, kind of follow the traditional story that we hear a lot, or did you collect the whole time?
Well, I'm a bit of a late bloomer, so that means my break didn't come until my probably my early 30s. My collection survived Kiss, it survived Girls, it survived, living on a bus touring the country, and it wasn't until probably the year 2000 I moved into my current house and packed up all the cards and never unpacked them until probably early 2021. My oldest son got into collecting cards, a modern collector, and I started unripping all the saran wrap off of my cards, my monster boxes, and through the years, it was a long gap, 2000 to 2020. I tell people I collected credit cards instead of baseball cards at that point. But I looked at I had some slabs. I got into the whole eBay thing in the late 90s and bought some slabs. And I would look at them at least once or twice a year. I would look at them. I had them in the safe in my basement. But full on collecting, it really didn't happen again until about a year or so ago. So here I am.
You talked about your son kind of helped get you back into it. And did he collect growing up as well? Or was it just a late in life thing for him too?
Yeah, I tried. I took my son is probably the most knowledgeable sports fan that I know. He can converse with hockey fans throughout the country, basketball fans, soccer fans, football, baseball, whatever. He knows. It's amazing how much knowledge he has. And I took him to sporting events. He played sports, didn't really collect. And then we oddly enough, I found a little when I was getting my cards out of the basement last year. I found his little childhood briefcase had his name on it. It had a bunch of 2007 tops in it. I had tried over the years to buy him cards, and I guess that was my last big push when he was 10 years old. And next thing I know, the kid's got Kobe rookie slabs and stuff like that. So yeah, I tried, but he's a modern day collector in the truest sense.
Now, when you got things back out in early 2021. Did you step back into picking up anything newer, or did you kind of continue to have that focus on the cards from the era that you grew up with?
Yeah, I stopped. I'm one of those strike guys. I in '94 I kind of stopped following baseball, picked up more on football, the NFL, stuff like that. Later on, soccer, European soccer. Don't really know the players from the last 20 plus years. I mean, I know Bonds and McGuire and all those guys, but then I don't know the difference between Boba Fett and Boba Shett, to tell you the truth. And I bought, I have some of the heritage stuff because I like the old stuff, but there's plenty of stuff for me to find that I still don't have that I want from the 70s, the 60s, and so on. So it's mostly, and I dipped my toe in the waters, and the waters were a little too chilly for me. So back to vintage for me.
So you got back in early last year, dusted off those cards, I guess. At what point did you decide that you might want to create a podcast or start to create some content? What prompted taking that step?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I binged Dr. Jim's stuff because no secret how he's influenced most of us. And I vividly recall the book coming out in 1979. And anyway, I listened to probably, several hundred episodes within the course of a month. Found another one, Salmon's Wax Ecstatic. I found yours. And I figured the 70s are kind of a unique time, right? The 70s were, in my opinion, underserved. And I'm not saying price wise, although they are pretty cheap, a lot of the 70s stuff, but it's a lot that went on in the 70s. It really needs to be discussed. The 1970 to 1979 were completely different and unlike any era in baseball. And of course, 79, we had, college basketball kind of stepped in the limelight there, and with Magic and Larry Bird and the national championship, and then their pro careers. So sports really took off, and it became more of I don't know what it was like for you, but for us, it was Phillies or nothing because you read the newspaper. We didn't have ESPN or anything like that. But then, every sport became global in the 80s. So the 70s were kind of like, the rise of all that stuff. The stadiums changed, the uniforms changed, the game changed. We had, suddenly we had relief pitchers and DHs and stuff like that, AstroTurf, polyester. So it's really a fun time, not only on the field, but off the field, as well as culturally. There was a lot going on. So I'm a history nerd, and a baseball nerd. So it kind of, I had something to talk about. And as everybody knows, the Irish can use a lot of words and say very little. So you might, if you listen to me long enough, you might learn a thing or two, but it'll take a long time. Take 50 minutes to learn one little item, but I'll keep trying.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about your show is it adds more to the story than just the cards themselves, more to the story than just the set or the player, but you go in and you tell a little bit more about what was happening in society at that time and how some of those things might have influenced things. That's one of the things that I liked about Matt's show as well. He would cover a set, but then he'd pick a couple of those random players and kind of give us the full story of what went on in their career and what's gone on with them post career too. And that was something that was different than what a lot of other card focused content creators are putting out there. And so I think that's one of the reasons that I latched onto your show a little bit when I found it too. Speaking of that, I discovered your show after you had been a guest on Dr. Beckett's podcast. I was just curious, how did that come about? You also had a fairly new show at the time. How did that go about? Was it you reaching out to him and engaging because you had been listening to his show, or did he find you on his own, or how exactly did that work out?
Well, I would ask, man, you can describe me as many different ways, a contrarian or somebody likes to argue about stuff. I'm just curious. So I would ask him questions. I wouldn't say I was spamming him, but I'd send him a question every now and then. And then he reached out to me and said, hey, why don't you come on the show? I think the first topic we talked about was soccer, European soccer. And so I came on, and we've he's been on my show. I've been on his show a couple of times, and we're going to talk next week again. But I send him questions every now and then, and he goes radio silent on me for a while, and then all of a sudden it'll pop up, because I'll send him a question or two questions at a time, and then once he has enough questions, we'll get together and chat about it. So I got to meet him in Dallas. I met him and Rich Klein at the Dallas Card Show a while back. So I've met him in person. Obviously a wonderful guy. He is as advertised, really. And that's part of, we talk about the 70s is I don't know. I don't want to say it's like Woodstock, but prior to then there was, I feel like everything was, kind of backroom dealings in the business. And in the 70s, it came out, I started going to card shows. It really became a true side hustle, or as I call a hobbypreneur. You're a hobbypreneur as well. It became a business and an industry, and so that has a lot to do with it as well, right? The '70s were not only on us in sports, but also in our hobby. It was a pretty big shift. So anyway, long story short, I talked to Dr. Jim. I send him emails, and he entertains and humors me, and we get together and throw some questions around.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun getting a chance to get to know him, get a chance to pick his brain, and something that me growing up I would have never imagined I would have had an opportunity to do, but it's been so cool to get a chance to do that.
And he's like you, Mike. He's like, he gets to the point quick and says what his show is packed full of nuggets, just like yours. I'm like Matt Salmon, where I can ramble for an hour and a half. So, that there's a difference. You're more like him. So,
Well, I think it's amazing to me. Like, so yeah, we've got similar episode lengths. I'm usually in that 15 to 20-minute range if it's just me doing a solo episode, a little bit longer if I have a guest, but he's doing that 5 days a week or 6 days a week sometimes. And so he is still packing in the content, day after day, which is pretty impressive.
and he cheats, right? You do know he cheats by speeding the tape up when he plays it back.
Does he do that?
It could be a 19-minute episode, but he'll tweak it so it's 15 minutes.
That's good to know. I have to keep an ear out for that.
If the guest sounds like they're on helium, that's why, because he cranked up the speed on that playback. So sorry, Dr. Jim, I apologize.
Little call out there.
Yeah.
You're on about episode 40, 41, somewhere in that range right now. You've done topics that spanned hockey, baseball, football, basketball. You've covered, all four of the big sports there, and even a little bit of soccer. You mentioned early on that wacky packages were one of the first things that you got exposed to. Any plans for covering any of the non-sport issues, Star Wars or some of the other movies or TV show cards that are out there, or even, some of those other entertainment type cards?
Sure. I bet you at some point I'm going to cover Kiss cards. Even though I was obsessed with Kiss back in the '70s, I never bought one of their cards. I had all the posters, albums, so I could see it happening. Right. I bought a collection this past summer, and I left the non-sports stuff on the table. I should have taken it, of course, but it's interesting that I'm not a comic book guy. I'm not definitely not a Star Wars guy. I saw the first two Star Wars in theaters, and that's the extent of that. So I think that I don't have the bandwidth for that stuff. And I'm not saying I won't cover it, because I like to learn. I do the show mostly to learn. As I've said in the past, it's heavily researched, but it's poorly executed, my show. But I still get to learn. I still learn a lot. So from a educational aspect, it probably makes sense to look into that. Maybe some Charlie's Angels cards. We'll see if that moves the needle a little.
Fleer put out a Gong Show set there in the late '70s too.
Yeah, I love the Gong Show.
Some people have told me, I've not done the research yet myself, some people have told me that is actually Steve Martin's rookie card. If Steve Martin could have a rookie card, I believe he's got a card in that late '70s Gong Show set that would be his first appearance on a card.
Wow. See, I just learned something.
I've got 2 wax boxes of that sitting at the shop that are still sealed. I need to dig in a little bit more, because they've been sitting there in my case since I opened up the shop a year and a half ago. It'd probably be beneficial for me to learn a little bit more about that set, so that I could tell the story a little bit more about what the heck it is and what's inside it. It might pique a little more interest than it's shown so far.
That's funny. I didn't even know that.
You're 40 episodes in. One of the other things I always like to talk about when I'm having a conversation with somebody else who's creating hobby content is, you said one of your primary focuses is to learn, both for you and to educate others. I guess what are some of the biggest things that you've learned so far about creating content?
Man, that's a good question. There's the technical aspect, right? And I'm supposed to be a technical guy, not necessarily computers, but live production. There's that end. And the biggest thing that I feel like, if I can give myself a pat on the back, is that I don't I'm not doing it for anybody else, right? I'm doing it for myself. So I go into it with a clear. I say I'm sponsored by nobody, and that's not that's just a riff from Neil Young, who did a whole tour where he's sponsored by nobody. So it's not a, I would love to be sponsored by somebody that could give me free cards or something like that, but I'm doing it for myself. And I think that that's part of when I say that, it's part of it. I'm reiterating to myself that this is just kind of for me. If other people listen, it's great. But the coolest thing is meeting people like yourself, Dr. Jim, Rich, and other folks who reach out. So I'm an introvert. I'm a loner. I've always collected in a vacuum, and I find that that's not happening anymore. People are sending me cards. I'm sending other people cards with no strings attached. So, I think that that's the best part, is learning that there's other people out there, and one or two people appreciate what you're doing, and that's awesome. I guess it's just that, it is a great hobby, and it's such a big hobby, but it's neat to I'm kind of coming out of my shell and meeting people. So that's a big thing as well. I say I do it for myself, but it's neat to meet people, and see what great people are out there, and whether it's through a DM or an email or just a comment on YouTube. It's just, that's been my favorite part, I guess, so far.
Yeah, that opportunity to stretch yourself, to challenge yourself, to push and grow a little bit is pretty cool. And especially when that's the aspect that's challenging you, because that hobby community is such an important piece of enjoying the hobby, or it can be, I should say, an
Yeah.
important piece of enjoying the hobby. Some people love that aspect of being able to wind down by themselves and go through their cards and build out their collections, and other people thrive on that social interaction or doing it with others. And so it's cool that that's been a piece that you've been able to add as you go through it. Do you have kind of a vision on where you want it to go? Dr. Jim talks about his initial vision of doing a thousand episodes or whatever it is, and that's where he was shooting for at the beginning. You talked about primarily kind of doing it for yourself, but do you have kind of a vision on where you want the show to go?
I don't. And it's funny, Dr. Jim said to me, well, John, there's only so many sets you can cover, right? And I'm sure he referring to 4 sports times 10 sets. But I hope that I've proven that there's more to talk about than just those 10 sets from each sport, the main sports. I don't know. I don't have a roadmap. And if you had asked me 6 months ago whether I'd be doing an episode about Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich, it wasn't on my horizon, right? But it's just, the more of these rabbit holes you go into, and the one I'm going to feature this weekend coming up. No, I had no idea the set existed, the players on the cards existed. That's the cool thing about it. We don't know, and I've been in this hobby off and on since 1974, 75. And it's amazing how many things are out there that I've never seen. Right. And I'm not going to pretend that I have this ship on a course. It's not on a course at all. We're just, we're like Cousin Eddie in Vacation. We'll put the camper whatever driveway's open. That's where I'm headed.
Yeah, I loved the episode on the Pepsi glove discs, and you touched on some of the other MSA discs that are out there. That was another product that I had discovered, I don't know, sometime about a year and a half ago, and was confused at first because I thought I was seeing the same card, but it's like, wait, this one says Holiday Inn, and then this one says Cranes, and then this one says,
Yeah.
that there's just, and then I kind of dug in a little bit and found, oh, okay, yeah, they put out about 12 or 15 different brands using the same kind of disc format. And that got me going down a path of trying to track down a bunch of those different variations and varieties. And
I just got I just last week I bought the wiffle ball set, right? It's 81 cards. And the guy says, I'm going to throw some other stuff in there. This is on eBay. I got a blank back set of discs. You may have seen on Twitter. I got the 86 Jiffy. He threw all that stuff in there, which is crazy, So these things seem to be multiplying, right? You buy one set and 3 sets show up. So cool stuff.
Yeah, I think the Chili Willies are my favorite.
I discovered those because I bought a huge Nolan Ryan collection last summer. Like essentially every Ryan card from 68 up to the mid 90s from when he stopped playing. And in there were a bunch of these discs, the cranes and all that, the Isolays, and I actually sold them. But I said, wait a minute, I need to look at this even a little bit more when I started the podcast. And so I ended up, getting the set, buying the set back. So
Yeah, it's great. And then you've got, being in the 70s, you've got all the hostess cards that could get worked in. And so
yep.
I think there's going to be plenty to talk about for you to keep
Right.
going as long as you're having fun with it.
Yeah. And like I said, this one coming up is going to be pretty interesting. You saw a picture of it on Twitter, but I bought a set from overseas, and it's the first time I've ever bought anything from overseas, and I was amazed with what I got. So can't wait to dive into that.
Cool. Is there anything in particular from a collection perspective that you're focused in on right now?
I love buying the old stuff, 50s and 60s. So right now I bought a couple collections that I'm still processing, and it's embarrassing, but there was a gap from my collection. And like I said, I started buying slabs in the mid to late 90s, and I bought a collection I called the Amish Collection in Lancaster, PA, where it covers from 1995 to 2005, and it's pretty comprehensive. So about 50,000 cards. I've been processing those, sorting them, from manufacturer, then down to year. Then I log them into Beckett OPG. So it's taken me some time. Buying the older cards that I love, there's been a pause on that. I kind of went crazy last year. I finished the Mantle base run, except for the 52 tops. So I had a pretty good year last year doing all that stuff, but I hit the brakes and kind of processing and onboarding all these cards from 95 to 2005. And then there's basketball, there's football. I have a long way to go. So it's fun though. That's what's great about the hobby. I have my goals and I have my sheet, my hit list, I call it my 2022 hit list. There's stuff on there like an Ernie Banks rookie, a Johnny Bench rookie, stuff like that. But that'll always be there. I have to get this stuff into my collection. And then as all of us go through, you have kind of a crossroads where you want to go with your collection. Do I want to sell this modern stuff or modernish stuff, or do I just, my goal from the get-go, I've always said from the time I started, was to own every baseball card. So getting rid of them doesn't make any sense, just but I will tell you this, what's interesting, one thing I learned is, we could talk about the steroid era and all that stuff and how this guy shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. But the most popular cards I've noticed by logging stuff in here are Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, as far as value. So say what you want publicly, but these guys, there's still a huge market for these guys,
When we had talked before, you had asked me, kind of what my coffin card is, or what's my one card that I wouldn't want to let go of. And we'd talked about it being Thad Bosley. I'm going to flip that back onto you too. Is there one card that it stands out above all the rest when it comes to your collection that you would never want to let go of?
Yeah, I've spoken about the 1960 Carl Yastrzemski rookie. And for some reason, remember back in the 70s here, you could have an American League team if you were from Philadelphia, because they never played the Phillies, so it didn't matter. So I don't know why. I think it was the name that I picked Yaz, and I loved everything about Yaz. I loved the number 8 he wore. I loved his stance. I loved everything about Yaz. So my dad, sometime in the late 70s, maybe 1980, begged him for the rookie card. He spent $25. I said this before. I'd pay him back $1 a month for the 25 months it took to pay it off, and I pretty sure I paid him $2. I have that. That's my card. I sent that out this past summer to get graded SGC. It came back a 3, but it's priceless to me. I have an 8, a PSA 8 that I got in the late 90s, but this one is my it's going with me till the end. Right into the oven with me, Mike.
There you go. Then there'll be one less on the pop report. We'll make sure to update SGC on that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, you can have the PSA one, but the SGC 3 is not going anywhere without me.
Is there any particular card that, you talked about a couple that are on your hit list, but any kind of overarching card on your hit list for your next several years or whatever it might be?
Obviously it's such a deep pool, right, with the pre-war stuff, and I have some pre-war stuff. I've I don't have anything that crazy. I have a T205 Christy Mathewson, which is great, but it's a PSA one. But otherwise, I'm trying to finish my 72 set, my 70 set, and my 69 set. And out of those three sets, I have less than 100. So, and there's no heavy hitters in there. I guess the biggest one is a Raleigh Fingers rookie, but the rest are high numbers. But yeah, I don't there's nothing that I need right now. There's nothing I'm searching for. I find that if you make a list, and you go to a card show, we all know that opportunity sometimes drops into your lap. Good example is this Amish collection I bought. I'm putting together a set. A friend that I met through the show wanted a 1980. He said he was starting his 1980 set, and I'm sorting. I put my 1980 tops off to the side and sorting out the starter set for him, and bam, up a Ricky Henderson pops up, right? And I already had the Ricky Henderson rookie, but you just never know what's going to happen, what's going to pop out. So, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I have my list, but I'm not, I'm not obsessed with the list. It's just kind of a guide, right? It's like life. As soon as the first shot's fired, the plan goes out the window in war. So, you kind of have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, and just see what happens.
Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight, having a chance to talk cards for a little bit, talk a little bit about your show. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and find the show?
Well, I'm that 70s card show on most podcast platforms. If there's one that I'm not on, I'm not aware of it. And I also broadcast the show on YouTube at that 70s card show. And you can find me on Twitter at 70s card. Other than that, there's just too many balls to juggle after that. I'm on Instagram, but I'm not. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not as far as the show. So yeah, find me anywhere you want, and drop me some lines of discouragement or encouragement, whatever you want. I'm a big boy. I can take it. And yeah, it's just going to keep talking as long as people keep listening, I guess.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that all y'all check it out. Especially if you want to learn more about those cards that were released in the 70s. And like I said before, what was going on at the time. It's a great listen. So John, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
The Sports Card Shop is your small town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector, the Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
I want to once again encourage you to go check out John's show, That 70s Card Show. If you want to learn about the 70s and the context that existed in the world when those cards were created, I enjoy listening to it every week when he puts out a new episodes, and I think you will too, so go check that out. If you like this show, if you like the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute, I would encourage you to reach out and let me know what you like about it, because then I can keep doing more of it. But you can also let me know what you don't like, if that's the case as well. Leave a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. I'd really appreciate that. And make sure to tell a friend. I'd love to continue to grow this audience, and by you helping me tell your friends about the shows that you enjoy, that's a big part in helping that happen. Thanks again for tuning in today. That's all I've got for you, so I'll catch you next time.